Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the news that our extreme Tory Brexit government is about to reverse another bit of their mad idea. Insane to think that Sunak only recently insisted that Brexit is delivering benefits at the same time as he was about to formally announce that, actually we need to reverse some of it. We went a little bit too far, you see. Not for the first time, and it won't be the last. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So this isn't the first time I've mentioned this specific issue. I covered it when it was pointed out that the government's ham-fisted Retained EU Law Act was going to result in the scrapping of various workers' rights, disability rights, gender rights, like equal pay for women in maternity leave. Imagine the egg on their face if that happened. On top of everything else, you're going into the final few months before a general election, and your New Year gift to the nation, never mind 5 pledges that go belly up by the end of the year. No, your New Year gift to the nation is to strip half the voting population of their rights to equal pay. The fact that the Tories even found themselves in this position is deeply embarrassing, or at least it should be. The thing about the Retained EU Law Bill, when it was passing through Parliament, it never made any sense in terms of what the supporters said it was for. You know, they would say things like, well, you're quite right that we should review legacy EU rules and remove any that aren't useful to the UK. Okay, fine. There's a process for that. You amend or repeal any legislation which you no longer think is our interest. Parliament's been doing this for centuries. It's well practiced. It also involves lots of debate, evidence from experts about the impact of any changes. At the end, MPs can then make an informed choice about their vote. It can still be the wrong choice, but at least they had the facts at their disposal. The Retained EU Law Act does not do this. It's a way of allowing ministers completely separate from Parliament, no debate, no experts, to simply decide, oh, that law, it looks a bit rubbish, let's get rid of it. You know, it had to be a law from a particular pool of laws. They can't do it with any old law. And that pool did shrink compared to the intention of the bill's original author, Jacob Rees-Mogg. But it nonetheless involved the ability to remove one of hundreds of laws without consulting MPs, without needing to have expert evidence given in a public forum, and to explain the consequences. Kemi Badenoch, the inexperienced minister who ran this puppy home, insisted that all affected laws were reviewed to make sure that their removal was in the UK's interest. No sooner had the bill passed into law and people were looking at it and going, oh, so Minister, did you mean to take away maternity rights? What? And removing the right for women to get paid the same as men for the same work? Did your review decide that that was in the UK's interest as well? Oh, oops. Now, there are lots of terrible aspects to this act, which we'll still go through at the end of this year. But the fact that the Tories engineered what we'd said for some time was an obvious cock-up in the making means they now open themselves up. First of all, consider that a number of influential Tories wanted the Retained EU Law Act to abolish all legacy EU rules, every single one. That includes these workers' rights that the government are now scrambling to rescue before they lose what few voters they have left. They've got 5 weeks to do it. Mind you, given that there was next to nothing in the King's speech for Parliament to do anyway, it's not like they'll be busy with anything else. But the point is that the Tory party could easily come back under the control of those who wanted all those laws gone. So the Tories have now exposed the fact that they present a material risk to workers' rights. This time, they nearly removed a load inadvertently. Next time, it might be deliberate. The second thing is that this was all done in the name of the unholy Brexit. It was a Brexit benefit, a Brexit consequence, whatever you want to call it. But it was a Brexit something. So now Brexit is being associated with the removal of these rights. The government are now reversing it. They are quite literally saying they've gone too far on Brexit and they need to back up a bit, but it is Brexit. Third, it highlights the problems with letting individual ministers do something that has required a whole parliamentary process in the past. It shows just why these things should be debated, evidence taken, and the public informed. The cock-up was noticed as soon as the public became aware of the detail. So why wasn't it noticed by the government as they were preparing it? Imagine if it had not been noticed until it was too late. Another thing to consider was that supporters of the bill said that they were mainly removing things, to tidy up the statute books. Oh, yeah, we've already got these laws domestically. We don't need duplication. We're just being tidy. Well, I mean, this is a nonsense for a start, by the way, because our statute books, they are centuries old. They're a right mess. But if we get rid of, EU laws on workers' rights with this act, which we have, what's the big deal if they're just replicated in domestic law anyway? Oh, what's that? Oh, they're not replicated. Oh, how interesting. You said they were. And beyond this embarrassing reversal, however, the legislation is still going to cause potentially major problems. Because one of the things it doesn't just remove a load of existing laws which actually could be beneficial to us. It removes references to established case law. So the government has effectively reset. The laws that are remaining have effectively been reset. So all of those legacy rules that remain in place, which is most of them, the government is basically directing the courts to ignore any previous judgments from the ECJ. Well, when a new law is implemented, there are always a few grey areas until they're tested. Like, you're not entirely sure what some of it means. So once judges have considered them in various contexts, then a general view builds up about what those laws actually mean in practice. Because bear in mind, MPs make our laws, but very few of them are legally trained. And of those who are legally trained, some of them are Dominic Raab and Suella Braverman, right? Basically, the legislation passed by MPs does not always mean what they think it does, especially if they ram it through Parliament without that proper scrutiny by experts. So it's senior judges who are able to tell us what the legislation actually does in various practical situations. Well, that process has to start almost from scratch now, or as of the start of next year. So it's like the government have dumped thousands of new rules onto businesses and workers. We used to know what they mean. We know what they mean right now, but we won't necessarily know what they all mean in January. Because we know what they mean according to case law established by the European Court of Justice, but not the High Courts or the Supreme Courts. So they will now have to decide. And until each one is retested in the courts, nobody will be quite sure what those grey areas might mean exactly. For example, the government are putting those workers' rights back, okay? But an employer, an unscrupulous employer, may decide, well, hang on a minute, there's a grey area there. It may not mean exactly what we thought it meant. They may decide to test it out by, say, denying their own employees previously established rights. They could claim, for example, well, we think that it means something different. Oh, yeah, I know the ECJ said it meant this. We don't think it means that. So that then forces those workers to take them to court, if they can afford to. That means that more workers will suffer as greedy bastards try to see if there are any loopholes in these old laws, and the courts may end up having to deal with a load of shit that should have been unnecessary. And finally, I will say that I do keep being asked, quite reasonably, I'd like to know the answer myself, if there's any quick way to just reverse this. Now, I've seen no authoritative view on that. I don't think repealing the Act could help here. Because the Act itself, all the Act does is give ministers the power to remove certain laws and regulations. So once they're removed, repealing the Act won't put them back. It removes the right of ministers to remove more in future. But those rules and regulations are still gone. So you'd have to put them back manually, which takes time. However, it may be that the next government could at least quickly restore the ECJ case law, meaning that it would at least, for the laws that still remain on the statute books, it would at least be clear what they mean in law. That being said, I don't know what Labour do intend to do about it. I don't think I've heard a statement from them. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.